just a man, that's a dirty, dirty love.
I'm still in love with you, boy.
It's the loving from the start, but you know we're at the part. That's the way I give my love.
I'm still in love. Yes, I'm still in love with
What a man gotta do, what a man gotta do. Girl, but I never had for promising no bling bling for all a girl. When I just a loving when me fling fling control a girl. And I make your head swirl, and I make your body twirl, and I make you wanna be my one and only baby girl. Night after night, make you feel love to keep you warm. Girl, you never get this kind of loving from your bond. I know you want your cats, and me just can't perform.
love you, baby.
I know you get the little loving on me
You
gone.
don't know how to love me.
I know no time for no kissing and
Not
chow.
even how to kiss me.
I do my take a little advice now.
I don't know why.
Baby girl, baby girl, baby girl, baby girl.
I love you, baby.
I just a dirty, dirty love.
I'm still in love with you, boy.
Well, I'm a hustler and a player, and you know I'm not a stayer. That's a dirty, dirty love.
I'm still in love with you, boy.
So girl, can't you understand that a man is just a man? That's a dirty, dirty love.
I'm still in love with you, boy.
The blessed loving from the start, but you know we're at the part. That's the way I give my love.
I'm still in love. Yes, I'm still in
Yo,
love
what a
with
man
you.
gotta do, what a man gotta do, girl. Hey, I do me give her dog love and say bye, bye, bye. But turn around, she ask a question, why? When me leave and me see the girl, I cry, cry, cry. And it hurts my heart to tell a lie, lie, lie. So don't cry no more, baby girl, for sure. Just remember the good times we had before.
I love you, baby. I'm still in love with you, boy.
Well, I'm a hustler and a player, and you know I'm not a stayer. That's the dirty, dirty love.
I'm still in love with you, boy.
So girl, don't you understand that a man is just a man? That's the way I give my love.
I'm still in love.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode, and I have to start this show again because I didn't hit record. So here we go. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Crush Live Call-Ins. I am your host here, Bart Hansen, and the number is 323-834.
Get down my head and into the bed, girl.
John Paul.
I don't know, plotting out the fantasy.
Great.
Hey baby girl,
is like
and it's
late
you are the
90s
key.
all over again. Here we
Because
go.
I then from you looking
All
at me,
right,
I
323-348-1281. 323-348-1281 is the phone number, or you can watch us live. We're streaming this live over at the Crush Live Poker YouTube channel, and I am in the YouTube chat. So we depend on you guys, as always, to for this particular show. We've got like 6 people now that have called in, and I have muted you all with the exception of our first caller, which is Wendy. So let's start it off here. Wendy, you hear me, Wendy? Go ahead.
Yes, I do. How
All
are
right,
you?
cool.
So
What's going on?
I observed a very interesting hand, and after it was over, I was really curious about what your take on it. And I posted it in the forum earlier today, so you can pull it up. It's tagged as 5-5.
Okay, hold on 1 second here. I just need to, I was screwed up here to get us on video. So, a couple more seconds. All right, cool. Wendy, so you're saying that you put this over in the website on the forums, over in the Crush Live Poker forums, and what's the name of the thread again? What would you do?
What would you do?
Right, what would you do? So let's bring this up. I actually saw this post earlier from Wendy earlier today, so I'll just go through it and you guys can follow along. As you can see it, I have it up in the, it's getting over here now. Yeah, now I got it up over on the stream so you guys can see it. But, all right, so Wendy says that she's not in the hand, but she saw this go down. Villain is what would seem to be a new player to No Limit, making all kinds of weird betting lines, like betting tiny into the pre-flop razor, betting quite large with 2 pair. So he's pretty much all over the place. Hero's a very, very tight pro, been playing for years. He can bluff occasionally, but he usually sticks to value. So this erratic villain has a stack of around 1,600, and the hero has 3,000 plus. So the villain in early position raises to 25, at least one other caller, and the hero in the small blind 3-bets to 125. Okay. The villain calls pretty quickly. So, Wendy, this is at 5-5, right? I'm assuming at the Hustler?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so,
it is
so,
5-5 at the Hustler.
So, villain calls pretty quickly. So, an open 3-bet out of the small blind from this guy who is usually pretty tight. This erratic villain calls. So, the pot's 275 and they're heads up. And the board comes out Ace Jack 10 with all spades. The hero bets $150. Villain grabs all his white chips, which are $100 chips in most of LA, and raises to 800. Hero tanks and tanks. And Wendy's question here in the forums is, what should Hero do with the following hands? Sets of aces, jacks. Wendy doesn't think this guy's got tens all that often. Ace king with the king of spades. Pocket kings with the king of spades. Pocket queens with the queen of spades. Now, I had actually written a quick little response here, and I will actually stand by that here. I mean, I think that the whole reason why you probably posted this, Wendy, is because this guy is so erratic. So it's tough to say, like, I mean, if you're really talking that, like, this guy thinks that, like, ace 10 is the nuts here. You know what I mean? I mean, we don't usually run across, like I'm talking about the guy that called the 3-bet. If he's so erratic and doesn't understand hand values and, like, he raises ace 10 on the flop, then obviously, like, all of these hands have equity. Against somebody that's not like that, a normal player, I think that you actually have to fold all of these hands with the exception of sets, but I wouldn't be betting 2, 3, or 4. I certainly wouldn't be betting 3 or 4. 2, 2, I guess you could bet, but it just kind of sucks to get raised. I mean, and you cover the whole board. But, with sets, when you bet 150 and the guy raises to 800, so at that point the pot is 425. It's 1225, I want to say 650 to call. So you're getting 2-1 right there. Plus the guy's got another 800. So it's like maybe 1825, 650 to call. You're getting like, I mean, you're going to get his money if this guy's all that erratic. So I think that you can call with a set. And if the turn is a total blank and he moves all in, you probably aren't priced in if you think he's got a flush or a straight at that point. That's my thinking, Wendy.
So he didn't. The villain doesn't have 1,800. The villain only has about 1,600. So after he
that's what I meant. I mean,
$800
800 more. 800 more. Like when he raises to 800, I said he's got like 800 left. So,
No, he doesn't. No, total of 1,600. So after he raised it to 1,800, he only had about 600 left because of the pre-flop raise.
Okay.
So yeah. So he had somewhere between 600 and 700. The reason why is because we didn't know exactly was because he had 5 stacks of yellow chips, which are $5 chips in a rack, and then he had kind of like a pile of other chips. And so I was just kind of estimating how much he had left. But he had somewhere between 600 and 700 left after his $800 raise. So, I was thinking to myself, okay, so if I was the hero and I'm sitting there with one of these 3 hands, what would I do? Okay.
Right. I mean, if you treat it as an all-in, I mean, if you basically treat it as, so if you're saying that, like, okay, he's like all in for so instead of raising to 800, he's all in for 1,400. I mean, at that point, it's what, like right around 1,900, and then maybe like 1,250 to call. So you're getting about 1.5 to 1. So you're not
Right,
real.
and that was
Yeah, and maybe that was, I don't know. I got a text from you earlier. I don't know if that was had to do with that, but
it did. Yeah,
yeah.
'cause I
So
was
you need
trying to
40.
figure out.
Yeah, you need 40% equity, and a set's interesting because when you're up against a straight or a flush and you have a set, you've got 7 outs and then 10 outs. So it's basically the equivalent of a flush draw because it's like 8.5 out. It's a little bit less than a flush draw, right? Like we all know a flush draw
Right.
has 9 outs with 2 cards to come is about 35%. So with the set, it's a little bit less than that because it's like 8.5 outs. So you wouldn't be getting a price if you treated that as an all-in. I'm just saying, can we ever? So if he has 600 left and we have a set, can we ever call and then fold on the turn? Now we only have 7 outs going forward to the turn, so I mean we're only going to hit what 1 out of every 6 or 6.5 times, something like that. I mean, how much 7 into like 6.5 times. I mean, so we can't really make 5.5 to 1 on a raise of 650 if he only has 600 left. So yeah, it's kind of an awkward. It's an awkward situation, I guess. But I guess it really depends on how erratic the guy thinks that he is. I mean, if he always has a flush or a straight here, then you just fold, right?
Well, I think that this guy, and I was reading through the post, and some people said that they didn't think that he could have a flush. And although with the ace of spades being on the board, it certainly reduces the number that the villain has a flush, this guy was not folding once he put money in the pot pre.
No, I don't think that we ever think he's full. Oh, you mean pre-flop? Okay, yeah.
Pre-flop. So, I mean, there aren't, because I did the combo work, and there are not that many combos of, let's say, like 7, 8 of spades. But he has, in my opinion, all of them. So if you think of whatever suited connectors that are reasonable down to, let's say, like 5, 6, he can have those, okay? And there's like 5 or 6 of them.
Right.
He, in my opinion, has any 2 pair on this board. What I don't think that the villain has is things like sets of aces, sets of jacks, or he could have a set of 10s, though, because he probably would have 4-bet. With obviously aces. So I guess in theory he could have a set of jacks or a set of 10s, but I also believe that he would do this with any 2 pair or better. What I don't think that he would do this with, me meaning villain, would do this with like the king of spades himself. If he was on a draw all night long, he was just calling. He was doing these funky small ass sets when he had like top pair.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that's the thing about this hand. I mean, look, I mean this is an assumptions hand. It's not. Again, it's tough to say in a form because if you're telling me that you think he has ace jack and he has ace 10 and he has jack 10 sometimes and he has flushes and he has straights, I mean we can just go to stove and put that in. We need 40%. I mean, if he's got ace jack here and say you've got like ace king with the king of spades, I mean, you're probably actually slightly favored because you've got 12 outs to the straight draw and the flush draw plus another 3 outs with the king. If you've got like pocket kings against ace jack, it's pretty close to a flip. So if you think that there are enough of those 2 pair hands there, if you think that there are enough of those 2 pair hands in there, plus, if he did say, then you could call off with those hands. You know what I mean? Because you're never going to be that bad with any of those hands if he doesn't have the king of spades in his hand, right? You're never going to be in that bad a shape.
So I'll tell you what happened, okay? So the Nitty Pro tanked and tanked and tanked, I mean, like for 2 minutes, and then eventually says, you've been giving action, I'll give you action. Now, this is at the end of the night. So this isn't early on. This is like, very late in the overnight hours. And he just goes ahead and ships all in.
Okay.
Okay. The whale calls, and the whale immediately turns over Jack 10 of clubs.
Well, then you can certainly call with any of those hands. I mean,
right.
yeah.
And the nit had ace with the king of spades.
Okay.
Okay. The turn came a brick, and the river was the queen of diamonds.
Okay.
So he ended up scooping with the straight. Now, at first, I thought that was like the worst play that I'd ever seen this pro ever make. And then when I was running the numbers this morning, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now it turns out that if he does go all in, based on what I knew, you know, what Hero's hand was at the time, and the range of what I was just describing, what I thought the villain could have, that it was coming out to 1.48 to 1, which was the reason why I was sending you that cryptic text this morning.
What's 1.48 to 1?
Well, when I calculated based on the stacks that I had written down, if the hero went all in,
right? Oh, right,
he
right.
was getting about 1.4821.
Right, so he needs 40%. Yeah, so he needs 40% equity. But I mean,
he was just shy of 40% equity.
You think he was against against Jack 10?
No, against the range of what I thought that the villain might be doing this with, because I never thought that he was doing it with a draw or anything. I thought it was always 2-pair plus, and so it was just a matter of what 2-pair could he really have, and then what sets, et cetera, and the flushes.
Well,
so
I mean, if the other guy flopped a flush, then he's got 7 outs with ace king with the king of spades, right? If the other guy flopped a straight, he's got 9 outs and a few outs to chop. I would have thought he would actually be more than 40% there. But it does go to show you that, like, making over bets does deny some equity. But, yeah, I would have thought that if he has all the 2-pair there, that ace-king with the king of spades would be higher than 40%. But I don't know how many flushes you gave him, so.
Well, I gave him a fair amount up to... as I said, you know, there's a lot of blockers on here, right? So, you know, you can't have any 10x spades, jack x spades, ace x spades. So it's queen 9, you know, king 9. So they're not even like really suited connectors. Like there's gappers there, unless you go with like 9-8 of spades and.
Well, you can't have king
6-7
9.
of spades.
I mean, you can't have king 9. Oh, you're talking about. Oh, I'm thinking about ace king with the king of spades. I was say you can't have king 9.
Right.
So, I mean, when you've got ace-king with the king of spades, the flushes that he has are like 8, 9, 7, 8.
I didn't include any of the ones that we had blockers to. So there was really only a few queen X of spades. I didn't see him playing like queen deuce of spades, let's say, like is really Ron's hand. But I did put in all of the under-suited connectors like 5-6 of spades, 6-7 of spades. He might even play 3-4 spades, but I didn't give him any of those. And then I only gave him like half the combos of pocket jacks and pocket 10s, because I wasn't sure that he would necessarily just flat call with jacks and 10s, so I didn't give him all of those. And then I gave him basically every 2 pairs, so ace-jack, jack-10, ace-10, because of what I had seen during so far watching him play. So, and I was surprised that it came out to the nitty had about 38, 39% equity, and the villain had like 42, basically, or is that right? 52. So, anyways, I thought it was an interesting exercise. So.
All right, Wendy, thanks for the call. As always, I appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye. All right. Caller in the 401, you're up next. 401?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Excellent. How are we doing?
Good. Who is this?
This is Tanner.
Tanner. First-time caller?
Yes.
Oh, nice. You got a hand for us, Tanner?
I do. Yep. It was a 1-2 game.
Okay.
And I have ace king in under the gun +1.
So this is a 1-2 game. Is this a capped game?
Well, 300 cap. Yeah, we're all about 300 deep.
And where is this played at?
No, this is Foxwoods.
Oh, okay. So 1-2 300 cap game. And you have ace king under the gun.
Yep, ace king offsuit under the gun.
Okay.
And it's a 3-way pot. So the hijack calls. I raised to 12, and the hijack calls.
Okay.
and then the cutoff comes along as well, and we go 3 ways to a flop.
And what are the stack sizes approximately?
We're about 300 effective.
So everybody's 300 effective. Okay, cool.
Roughly. Yeah, a couple of them are a little bit deeper, but yeah, 300 effective.
Okay.
And then the flop is Queen, Jack 10, rainbow, so we flop the nuts.
Queen, Jack 10, rainbow. Okay, cool.
Yep, and so we flop the nuts. I lead out for 20 into a pot of like 36 maybe.
So you lead for 20, okay.
Yep, and the hijack calls.
Okay.
And the cutoff overcalls. Now, the hijack is, I got a lot of history with the cutoff, the overcaller.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty familiar with what he's going to be overcalling with here. The hijack is a bit of a fun player. I mean, I expect him to be in there with a lot of Queen X. I absolutely have him crushed and could definitely get multiple streets from like a lot of different hands. But my concern is when the cutoff overcalls, we're talking about the cutoff is more like an old man coffee type. And I think he's not overcalling light at all. I think, at best he has ace queen, and like we're looking at ace queen plus, but mostly 2 pair plus, I would imagine.
Well, he could have king queen, king jack, king 10, something like that too. You'd be surprised. Right. But yeah, you're right. You wouldn't expect him to overcall with a 9. Yeah, but if you're saying the guy up front is...
Yeah, no, I expect him to fold a 9, and he might overcall with pair plus draw and maybe just see the turn.
Okay.
But in general, he's going to play pretty tight. But on the turn is where it gets interesting as well. So turn is the 7 of clubs that brings in a backdoor club draw.
Okay.
And so I lead out for 40 into a pot of almost 100. It's like 95 maybe.
Okay.
And which might have been on the smaller side, but I wanted to hopefully, if the fun player was in there with a Queen X, I wanted to keep that in there. Or because if anything, I'm expecting the fun player to continue maybe with pair plus draw.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I have the made straight, so I'm happy to let him keep drawing. And then, so I bet 40, hijack calls, cutoff overcalls again. Now we're going 3 ways to the river. Now, when he overcalls on the turn, I really think he's like super nutted, like 2 pair plus easily, and he would really, really consider folding a lot of hands that he should probably keep.
Well, you got to, I mean, I can see where you're going, but one of the other things that would come out in my mind though, too, is that appearance of that backdoor club draw. So you start looking at that and you're like, all right, well, he just called the flop and he called the turn. I would start looking at if a club were to come, I would start looking at which card on the flop, is a club he could have. Right. It's probably not going to be King X of clubs because that's going to, he's probably not calling a raise with like King 5 or something like that pre-flop.
Right. I don't expect him to overcall with too many like suited club hands. So unless but yeah, in general, I'm sure he has some. Well, that's also part of my question is, do you think I should size up here on the turn and try to make sure I'm not going to get drawn out, or is it better to just look for the Queen X value from especially a fun player who, with Queen 10 off is going to peel again, possibly. Well, I'm sorry, not Queen 10.
I think it's fine. I mean, obviously I don't play at this level of 1-2, but I think it probably is a little bit player dependent too. I mean, if you think that guy in the hijack is always going to call with a pair and a straight draw, you could size up because you want to get more money in the pot, right?
Okay. Yeah. But that's not even really. Yeah.
I mean, you bet 40 into 95. Yeah. In general, I would probably bet like 75 or something like that. Just because you started with 300, so I'd get more money in there for sure.
Yeah. Okay, and well then also I know that he the overcaller definitely once he overcalls the turn especially, I know he's got all the sets in there as well, and I don't block any of them, so that's also a consideration as well. As we go to the river, the river is a queen pairing the top pair, and so now I also have to. So I feel like maybe I should have sized up on the turn because especially because I have a lot of history with the overcaller. And I know he's very nutted when he's calling the turn here. He's not peeling here at all. He's not looking at it like, pot odds. I need to try to just, what I mean? When he calls it, he's super nutted. He's got 2 pair plus, basically always. And then, if he picked up some sort of club
Tanner,
draw.
not that it matters, and I'm not picking on you at all, because all these terms are made up. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny. Somebody asked me, they're like, do you know what somebody was trolling me somewhere, like on, I don't even know. This was months ago. And they're like, do you know what an elastic board is? And I'm like, I'm like, I don't, sometimes I don't pay attention to these terms. If you told me what someone who said what an elastic board was when they made the term up 8 years ago, I'm sure I would understand it. The reason why I'm saying this is because you're using the term nutted not really correctly in the way that people think about nutted. The guy is not nutted.
He has a very strong. Obviously,
Okay.
I have the nut.
One of the other things too is that I wouldn't really be concerned about sets all that much, in the sense that I think that pocket queens re-raise. Forget about what the river comes. I think pocket queens 3-bets a lot. Maybe jacks and tens don't.
Right.
But,
well, I want to just actually, yeah, this is actually important.
But
so
the other thing though too is that, you know, you have to overlay the fact that he doesn't 3-bet pre-flop with jacks or tens, and he also doesn't raise the flop or doesn't raise the turn. I'm not super concerned about sets. Now, 2-pair, yeah, for sure. Queen is a bad card. You say the river's a queen, yeah, that's certainly a bad card for you.
Right. Well, this is where my actual question is. So on the river, we're looking at a pot of $200, a little over $200.
Yeah.
And what is my line here? Is it ambitious to look for value from Queen X, considering that I've had an overcaller on a relatively static? I mean, it's not really static. I shouldn't say that. But yeah, am I looking for value here with Ace King on the river, considering I've had an overcaller twice now?
Yeah, absolutely.
And now the board is paired. Yeah,
I mean, you've got 225 left. I mean, you've got 225 left, okay? So in your stack, right? Or 225 left. The pot is 200. I mean, I think that you can easily bet. I mean, the thing is that if you want to see, here's the thing in 1-2 though, too, right? That I don't really come across in my own game is and I don't know the answer to this. If you bet the river 125, are there some guys that are so clueless that are just going to move in with a queen? Is that hijack guy going to move in because he thinks that ace queen's the nuts?
I don't believe so. Well, I'll show you the river action, and you can tell from that. So I bet 65, which 65? Is relatively small.
You bet
yeah,
65?
I know, yep. Well, again, because I actually, like I said, I have a lot of history with the overcaller, and I'm very confident in what his range is. And so the board is now paired. I now bet, I'm not losing to Jack 10, Queen Jack, all the sets. I bet out very small, and I was looking to bet fold. And so, I mean, maybe this is all just results oriented, and I understand in better games, I wouldn't necessarily, I want to kind of get an answer maybe at a 5-10 what you would do in this spot. But what happened here, I bet 65. The hijack calls. And then the cutoff jams all in for about 180, basically minus what I had left, and I basically insta-muck. And the hijack, because like I said, I was bet folding Ace King there very confidently. Hijack calls with my exact hand. He also had Ace King, and the cutoff turns over Queen Jack of clubs for the full house.
Okay. So I mean,
I don't know.
When you bet 60, so he had Queen Jack of clubs, so he flopped top 2. And then he turned to club draw, and then I mean, what's the? I don't really see the problem with the way that you played the hand. Besides, I would just bet larger on the turn. You're not trying to not get drawn out. You're just trying to get stacks in. I mean, at the end,
it was right. It was just more of a sizing question. And then, 5-10 game, what are you doing with Ace King there? You know what I mean? Does he really have a lot of? Can he really be bluffing in that spot? Because I understand his range very well. But in a spot where against a trickier player, I know that I can bet fold Ace King there and not get exploited. But against somebody else, are you just sizing up there, like you said, maybe betting 150 and then bet folding it still? Or
why are you scared that a guy is going to bluff raise you at the end when you bet 3 times on a board like this? When you can have easily a full house, you're going to usually have Ace King or a full house. Do you think that that a guy from behind is going to try to bluff you off of that range?
No, I guess not. No, I was just curious. Okay. I just was concerned about sizing and wanted to get your opinion.
Okay, cool. I don't know. Oh, I got to mute. All right. Thank you very much for the call, Tanner. I hope you can call again, okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, cool. All right. Next caller here is Nashville, Tennessee. Hold on one second here. I'll lock this thing up.
Conference locked.
All right, Nashville, Tennessee. Oh, 615. I'm sorry. 615, you're up next.
Hello, Bart. How you doing?
Good. How's it going?
All right, good. Hey, I was calling. Sometimes I think I get a little too cautious on scare cards when they hit the board
Okay.
against certain players. And this was a 2-5 game. I was out in Las Vegas, and this was at Bellagio.
Ah, nice. So 500 cap, right?
Stacks,
500 cap.
yeah,
right?
effective stack. Effective stack was a 530, which was my stack.
Okay.
And this villain had been pretty aggressive, and he just won a big pot with A7 offsuit where he caught trips.
Yep.
On the river and stayed in hand and caught trips. And I had I was in under the gun, and I had Queen Jack, Diamond, and that's kind of the lowest of my opening hands in the early position. But I put $15 out there, and the hijack call and the button call. So the pot is like $52 in there. And then the flop was a jack of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds.
Jack of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds. So you have top pair and a
Yeah.
flush draw, right? Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I lay it out with $40.
Okay.
And hijack folded the button call. So they put the pot at 130. And then on the turn, 4 clubs came out.
Okay.
So when I saw that, I checked, and the button bet $75, and I called. So that put the pot at 282, and when he had just won with that A7 offsuit, playing ace rag, and he played just kind of seemed to have been running good. So that slowed me up a little bit. And then the river was a 9 of clubs, a break. So
Okay,
I
let me just start. Let me stop you here. First of all, what's your name?
Bill.
Bill. All right. So let's
Yeah.
all right. So let's go back. So you said the river's a 9 of club. Now I wanna go back here. So you open Queen Jack of diamonds from up front, which obviously I think that's fine. You get a pretty good flop here, right, with a top pair and a flush draw, and you bet 40 into a pot of what, about 50.
Yeah.
That might be a little bit large, but okay, that's whatever, that's fine. The button calls.
There's 2 players.
Right. The button calls, the turn's the 4 clubs, and now you check to this guy, okay? I don't think that that's really all that bad of a play, because if you look at it, Bill, like if you didn't have diamonds, you might bet, you might check, you might be playing. It's not necessarily even a pot control. It's like, all right, well, I bet the flop and this guy called. Maybe if I check, he'll take a stab at it with diamonds or something like that. Like, say you had Queen Jack of spades or something like that, and you lose to Ace Jack and King Jack. You sometimes will lose value if a guy checks behind or something like that. But I think Queen Jack is different than, say, having Ace Jack, where I would certainly continue to bet. So I don't really hate the check all that much. Now, you bet because you've got the board so covered. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you got Ace Queen of diamonds, maybe you barrel again to try to get the guy off of like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, but you dominate this board a lot. So you bet. So you check, the button bet 75, and now you call. And even before you said the river, I mean, the way that I would approach this, now it's 282, and the river's the 9 of clubs. So the way that I'm reading this board right is that backdoor clubs came in, but that's not that big of a deal. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with that term that I use on the Crush Live Poker, Fifth Street Chicken. Have you ever heard of that before?
Yeah.
So here, when you check, I think that we can all agree. First of all, I think the river check is fine. Okay. Really, you only beat Jack 10 now, right? So, because Jack 9's 2 pair that beats you. So I think the river check is fine. And then we start to think about, well, does this guy, is this a lot of players at 2-5? Once you check call that turn, they're not going to be value betting Ace Jack on the river. You know what I'm saying? Like when you check call the turn, like they're not betting King Jack, they're not betting Ace Jack. You don't really have to worry about getting value owned all that much, meaning that he's going to, bet a a hand for value that's better than yours all that much. Some guys will. When you start to move up, they certainly will. But at 2-5, I'm not overly concerned about that. Now here, you lose to clubs. You lose to Jack 9. Like you said, you lose to a 4 if you thought this guy's like chasing any pair or anything like that, right? And
right.
diamonds, do you think that you having diamonds in your hand, do you think that that helps you or do you think that hurts you? Like, you didn't tell me what happened, but let's say that you check and the guy bets. Do you think that having diamonds in your hand helps you or hurts you now on the river?
Well, I would think having the diamonds would hurt me because that would leave more cards out there that could fill his hand if he backed into the club flush, and then also
that's definitely
the trips were out there.
Sure, that's partly the answer, and then the other part to it is that he has less diamonds. He doesn't have as many missed diamond draws that he's bluffing with, right? So diamonds in your hand hurts you. So if you check here and this guy bets, you do beat straight draws, but again, this might be a player-dependent thing. Like, is a guy going to bet 6-7 on the turn? Is he going to bet it on the river? The river's a 9. You checked, and then what happened? Did he bet?
Well, no, he checked back.
Okay.
And I won with a pair, and he says he had pocket tens. I don't know, but that's what he said he had. He didn't show him, and I just wondered whether I maybe should have put a bet out there on the river, and that I maybe backed off too much because of the way the board looked. That maybe I could have gotten a little bit more out of the hand than I did.
With your specific hand, which is Queen Jack, the answer to your question, in my opinion, is no. I would say no. With Queen Jack and the way that this board ran out, I think checking is perfectly all right, and I have no problem with the way that you played the hand. Because really, like I said, you're losing to Jack 9 now. So you're really only beating Jack 10. Now, if you think this guy's going to look you up with 7s, 8s at the end, that's a very small portion, I think, of his range. If you had Ace Jack, it would be different. Like, I sometimes will play that upfront bet where you could actually check the turn, sometimes have a guy bet, you call, and then you bet the river when diamonds brick out. And then a guy calls you with any jack because he thinks you're full of shit. You know what I'm saying? But with Queen Jack, you lose to enough jacks now in Ace Jack, King Jack, and Jack 9 that it becomes a perfect check. I actually don't mind the turn check either. I actually think that you got another bet out of this guy, whereas if you had bet, he might have just folded like a 5. You know what I mean? And if he's got a hand 7s or 8s, he's drawn at 2 outs. So I really don't have a problem with the way that you played it at all. Okay?
Okay, well, and I was going to tell you, I post over there as Jack. That's what I usually put on.
Oh, are you Jack 777?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's who it is. And
cool.
That's what I just wonder is when you play, so if you at a table, do you plan who you would maybe attack more in a situation like that? It's like if you know somebody's a station, you know you're not going to really bet into him. But do you plan different people when you sit at the table, or do you just have your way of dealing with different types of players?
Well, I mean, listen, you don't necessarily know someone like the back of your hand. So sometimes you got to, at first, deal with guys that are certain types of players. But if you really get into the groove and you're playing, the same player pool over and over again, you really should try to pay attention and try to get to that next level where you're trying to plan how to play an actual specific player. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for the call, bud.
Wait. Hey, thank you, Bart.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy. All right. Next caller here. By the way, guys, I've locked the conference out because, I've already had so many calls. I can see some people coming in. But Squish My Tomato here. You're up next. Hello.
Hey, what's up, Bart?
What's up?
Hey, I've got a hand from you from yesterday at the Commerce.
Okay.
So it is 510.
Yep.
About 2,000 effective, but it doesn't really come into play.
Mm-hmm.
The villain in the hand, I don't want to say names or anything, but he's a well-known live at the bike guy.
Okay.
So I didn't know who he was. I don't really watch Live at the Bike or anything. I've never played with him before. But
Yeah.
just one orbit earlier, I was in the big blind. He was in, I was in the big blind, and he had led into me for 3 streets on a Jack 4-4 board with Jack 9, and I had 9-4 in the big blind, and I just called.
Okay.
And I was good. That's my only history with him. I had slid over 1 seat, so he's under the gun. He limps. I raised to 45 with ace queen of clubs.
So he limps under the gun?
Yes.
Okay.
And the small blind calls, and he calls. So we're 3 ways to the flop.
Ace queen of clubs, right?
Yes.
All right. Small blind calls, and he calls.
The flop comes ace 2 6, and the 2 and the 6 are both clubs.
Ace, 2 of clubs, 6 of clubs. So you've got the nut flush draw and an ace.
Yes.
Okay.
So both of them check to me. I bet smaller. I bet only half pot here. Just figuring, I want to keep smaller flush draws in. If I didn't have clubs, I'd obviously bet bigger. I bet 65.
Okay.
Small blind folds, and the limper, the villain, he calls.
Small blind folds, and the limper calls. So you've got this guy. Now, let me ask you this question. When you said that he's like a live at the bike guy, is that I know. I think I know. He's not. You wouldn't necessarily call him a professional, right?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay. I know who you're talking about. I just want to because sometimes people, you say you don't watch live at the bike, so it's like, So this guy is a recreational player, but he plays quite a bit. So
yes.
Yeah, you bet 65, and the limper calls. Ace deuce 6.
Yes.
Yep.
The turn is a red 8.
A red 8.
He checks.
Okay. Yep.
He checks, then I bet 135, targeting, again, smaller club draws and aces.
Yeah, sure.
And he thinks for about 45 seconds, and he calls.
So hero bets 135, V1 calls. And again, this is one of these things where I'm almost 99.9% sure that I know who you're talking about. And because I know this guy's style, it's interesting because, if this guy were to check raise the turn, he would never be bluffing, like ever. So it's, you got to understand that when that player types are important. Just like Jack 7-7 said in the last call, it's like you got player types and then you got knowing specific players. But I'm very, very familiar with this player. So it's, it's one of these things where you'd have to really evaluate, like, do I just have clubs here? But I also know that this guy doesn't slow play, so I wouldn't have expected a turn check raise all that much. But anyways, he makes the call.
He just calls. Now, by the way, what you just said, that's kind of been – I felt like I'm in the dark because I've gotten so used to the player pool at Hustler.
Yeah.
I've been playing about 50-50 between 5-10 at Commerce and 5-5 at Hustler, and I feel like I'm in the dark so much at Commerce. I've kind of had to tone back, play much tighter, especially from up front, just because I don't know the player pool at all.
Let me ask you a quick question just to interject. So I haven't gone over to Hustler that. So how does the game size compare, the 5-10 at Commerce? Because I've heard like that Hustler's been getting some deep 5-5 games.
Yeah, it's really not that much bigger.
What, the Commerce game's not that much bigger?
The Commerce game is not that much bigger. I mean, the average stack size is bigger, but I mean, even on weeknights at Hustler, I mean, you'll be in games where the average stack, is over 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes up to 1,500 at the table. I mean, there's some deep games there.
Yeah.
But especially during the day and during weekend days, the Commerce game definitely is bigger.
Okay. So now we roll to the river.
The river is a red 5.
Okay, so I'm going to say 8 of hearts, 5 of hearts. So it's ace deuce 6, 8, 5. You had the ace queen of clubs, so you've bricked out, but you still have ace queen.
I'm not sure this matters, but one was a heart and one was a diamond.
Whatever.
The 8 and 5.
Okay. So not the same flush.
So
shoot. Okay.
Now he thinks for about 15 to 20 seconds, and he leads for 550.
So the pot is when you bet 135 on the turn, right, and he calls, and you had bet half the pot, 65 to 250, so it went half pot, 275, 20. So that's like a full-size pot-size bet, right? Just about a full pot-size bet?
Yeah, he just comes out and pots it.
You know what sucks here, I got to be honest with you, is that his line does, and I have seen him make bluffs like this before, this particular guy, where it just doesn't make any sense, but, you know, you have the clubs in your hand, which kind of sucks. It also kind of, but it's weird, though, because I don't, like, again, I know this guy pretty well, like, it's not like he would come out and lead, I think, for that sizing, though, with ace-5 either, so it's almost like he's got like 9-7 of clubs here for value. It's such a thin value range. 3-4 of 3-4. Does 3-4 call the turn? Probably not. I know it's really, really weird. It just sucks that you have clubs. That you've got that ace queen of clubs. So it's like he's got to have like king jack or like king 10 of clubs for this to be the type of bluff.
That's kind of what I figured, that I have the clubs. I'm blocking the clubs. But
Yeah.
then again, I kind of thought about it more, and I thought, you know, blocking the ace of clubs is kind of irrelevant because I don't know him, but I wouldn't think he would be turning an ace in a hand with the ace of clubs into a bluff here.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that you wouldn't know. I mean, Squishy, I wouldn't call. Well, first of all, this guy would never make this play against me, but I wouldn't call here at the end. I understand what you're saying about the ace of clubs. Yes, you're right. It doesn't make that much of a difference. The queen of clubs does a little bit, but I just think that he's going to be. You're getting 2-1, and he's going to be more than 2-1 times more value here than bluffs. As thin as he reps, that's what I would say.
I mean, I figured this. I mean, he doesn't know me, and I don't know him, and I figured, you know, it sucks, but it's one of those LOL live poker things where it like has to be 7-9 of clubs or something.
Yeah. So you folded?
I did. I turned over the ace, and I tried to talk to him and get any kind of response out of him, and couldn't get anything, so I folded. And then he called me a nit for folding and didn't really say anything besides that. So. I think he had it, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would be pretty happy with my fold there. So.
Okay, cool. Thanks,
All right,
Bart. Appreciate it.
You got it. All right. Next caller here, 718. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Bart? It's Gene.
Hey, Gene.
How you doing?
Good.
So you got a hand from a 2-5 game, 1,000 cap.
Okay.
So this was kind of early on in the session. I think it was a new table, actually. So the villain, the main villain, was in a middle position, was like a young Asian guy, and he seemed kind of on the aggro side, you know. So he opens middle position to 20. Okay. I call on the button, so fold it to me, I'm on the button. I call with 10-9 of spades.
Mm-hmm.
And small blind was a black guy who was kind of, kind of conservative, I would say. He calls also. He wasn't really kind of getting out of line. He seems kind of on the nittier side.
Okay.
Especially post flop. Like before that, he like check folded kings on an ace high board after being a pre-flop raiser, face up. So anyway, so 3-way to the flop.
Yep.
Flop is like 65, and the flop comes out Jack 8-6 with 1 spade. I don't remember which one was a spade. I think it was an 8, but that doesn't really come into play. But 1 spade. So Jack 8-6, 1 spade. Let's see. The small blind checks, and the pre-flop raiser bets 25 now.
25 into a pot, so pretty small, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He bets 25 into a pot of 65.
Yeah.
So right away, I got an open-ended straight draw with a
backdoor spades.
with a backdoor flush draw, right? So right away, I'm kind of looking at his bet, and I'm thinking to raise, right? So we're pretty deep. I don't have the stacks here, but it must have been like 1K plus. Or something like that. So I'm looking to raise. I'm thinking to raise, right? Because it's kind of a weak bet, right? While I'm considering what to do. The small blind now raises to 50 out of turn. Okay, it's one of those live poker things, right? So now he raises to 50 out of turn. So now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking I wanted to raise, right? But now I'm thinking because so if I think the rule is if I just call, the action stands, right? So he will have to raise to 50.
Well, that's my question. I mean, it depends on what card rooms you're in, because at Commerce it means nothing. But that would be the first thing that I would say is, like, if I was, this is at Parks, right? You said, or
yes,
Parks,
yeah,
right? Yeah, like if I was playing at Parks, I'd ask the floor, like, if what happens with, what's the policy here with out of turn action? In some places, plus in TDA tournament rules, yes, if you call, he has to raise. I think calling is. See, I don't even know if calling though is considered changing the action or not.
Well, that's the thing. I'm pretty sure the rule is if the action doesn't change, the bet stands. Like I'm 100% sure that's the rule. Like if I check, I mean obviously I can't check, but I'm 100% sure that's the rule. So and I'm pretty sure the rule is if the action doesn't change, the bet stands. So.
Yeah, but is a call changing the action though?
That's the question. But I think well anyway, so I think that the rule is that if I call, the action stands. But anyway, so I decided. So given that, I basically assumed that that's what's going to happen. So I decided to call because I figured, he's going to raise to 50, and I get to see what the villain, the middle position, gets to do, right? I mean, who knows? Maybe he's like sandbagging, like top set or something, right? Then I get to see, I get the position back, right?
Yeah.
So I decided to just call. I mean, first of all, do you think that's kind of a good idea given what happened?
Well, all right. So this is what I would do if I was convinced that if I called, the guy would have to make it 50, then I would probably do what you did, Gene, and then if the other guy called, I would probably back raise, because then it's one of these. First of all, I would try to make a show of it. I would try to get a ruling in, not only for my own feeling, but I would want to know, and I would want the other guys at the table to know that I have asked. Now, if the guy comes over and says to you, if you call, the guy has to raise, then calling and back raising looks more logical than just raising. Because if you had a big hand, why would you raise now if you could call and the other guy's forced to raise, right? If that's what happened, then I would call. If it's not, and calling does change the action, then I would probably just raise right away, and I'd consider that $50 thing just bullshit. Like, this guy is just, you know what I'm saying? So I would either go one of those ways, but I would have called the floor over, made sure that the other guys know that I'm asking, and then use that information.
Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, that would look like super cut and knotted to know that he's going to have to put the money in and then raise again, right?
Right. Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. I guess that makes sense. So I decided, to call just to see what's going to happen. He made it 50. He kept the 50, and the middle position then called, right? Mm-hmm. And but I didn't back raise though, so I decided to see, like, because that guy was kind of conservative. But he was conservative. But on the other hand, he had this, like, I don't know how to describe it, but the way he talked, he was sort of, he liked to, prove a point that, he knows what's going on, whatever. So essentially, like, I put him on the jack right away. I thought he had some kind of jack, and it's one of those, like, flop raises. But I figured if I back raise, although it does look like, especially if I made a show of it, like you said, it looks super strong. But I just wasn't sure he's going to fold, a jack. But I guess maybe in retrospect, maybe I could have raised. But anyway,
I've played some big hands, not necessarily recently, but if you've watched some early videos and some other podcasts where I've pulled these back raises, like in spots where, you know what it is that this is a little bit different. But I've talked about how you can sometimes call if the pre-flop raiser checks and another guy bets and you have like a draw. Let's say you had a draw here, right? Mm-hmm. And you call, and then all of a sudden the pre-flop raiser check raises, especially on a ragged board where you don't think that he can really have a set, like you think he's got aces or kings, you can put a ton of pressure on them. I've probably done that 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years where this pre-flop raiser all of a sudden raised, and then he check raised the flop, but we were super deep, and then I back raised a field better because I just knew what is the preflop raiser going to do? Like he's going to like stack off for $4,000 on a 9-5-6 board with like pocket kings. But anyways, that's
we weren't that deep.
Right,
though.
right.
I mean,
But I'm just saying
deep.
I'm saying the back raise is a strong play. But anyway, so what happens on the turn?
Right. Okay. So basically, call. I mean, so 3-way still. So now pot is like 215. Now the turn is an interesting card. It's a 3 of spades. Okay. So I pick up the spade draw now.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But now the original raiser, right, the middle position, he now bets 75.
So the small blind checks. So the small blind checks now.
I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Let me check my notes here. No, actually, sorry. It's the small blind, right? So he raised now. The small blind bets 75, okay. Right? The guy who made it 50, right?
Right.
So he bets, and the middle position now calls.
Oh, I'm definitely raising the turn here.
You definitely raising the turn?
Yeah, because the small blind has like just a shitty jack for the most part. I mean, now you've got so much equity. Now, I put in my notes that you're 1,300 effective. We'll just approximate it. I mean,
I think the other people were shorter, so let's call it like 1,000.
Okay, so 1,000 effective, but even still, though, I mean, it's just like, see, if a guy is like doing some hand reading, he wouldn't necessarily think that you're slow playing there. But like, if you make it if you make it 350 here or even 400. You can then decide on the river whether or not you're going to bluff. Like if the guy calls, you could be like, you can like leverage your stack here where you can make it 375 or 400. And then you can decide, all right, if he calls, he's probably not going to fold the river. So you can just check back the river. But that play on the turn adds so much fold equity and you have so much equity in your hand. It has to be a profitable play. And you're never going to get... With this sizing, you're never going to get raised back. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I think we can all agree that this guy never has a set or two pair. So,
yeah, no, the small blind definitely has a jack. I think. I mean, because because of the. Right. But what about what I was I wasn't too worried about the small blind. Especially because he was kind of conservative post flop. I think if I put like a ton of money, he probably would fold his jack. But what about this Asian guy that raised? The original raiser. That called the check raise. I mean, it's a small one given, and now called another bet. Like, what the hell does he have?
He might not. I mean, he's getting such crazy pot odds in every single street. I mean, the guy.
What? Like, what does he have though? As a pre-flop raiser, like, what can he have?
He could have a jack too, couldn't he? I mean, what would he do with Queen Jack plus there, or Jack 10 plus? I mean, you would think that he would. I mean, I think that the line from the small blind is consistent with the jack, so he should be folding like 7s, 9s, or 10s, but he might get stubborn with that. But I mean, he could certainly have a jack here as well.
Yeah, I guess. Well, so that kind of confused me, like and he seemed like a aggro player, but a sort of a competent player. Like he knew he was just I think he seemed like very aggro. I wasn't too sure, I haven't played with him before. But he seemed like he kind of knew what's going on. So I figured, like, what the hell does he, what is he calling with here? So, all right, well, the turn was kind of, well, all right. So, I wasn't sure if that was the right play. I decided not to raise because of all this, like, multi-way action and all that, weird stuff.
Somebody in the chat actually points out, too, is that the guy could have spades, too. I mean, there are other spades out there. Like the villain could have higher spades too.
But like, wouldn't he like see because he was so aggro? I figured he'd drive like he had like ace queen of spades or something. Like I figured he'd be betting like way more on the flop, and possibly even like back raising. Like he wouldn't bet 25 with ace queen of spades. Like I don't think it makes sense.
You would also think you would also think that there would be a frequency. Yeah, you would think that the flop sizing would be larger. And he might pounce on the small flop check raise sizing, which looks absurdly
weak. Yeah, he was like the kind of guy that he could go nuts, with something like that, like a big draw type of hand. I think he would definitely gamble, and put pressure on. I think. Anyway, so I decided to just call, basically.
River.
Maybe what also maybe came into play. Like I had some kind of really bad experience with these huge combo draws, playing them fast, and bricked out like a lot. So maybe I kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, here we go again. Anyway, so I did call, and the river comes out of queen offsuit. So I just hit the nuts.
Okay.
Of course.
Yep.
So now the small blind checks,
right?
And the pre-flop raiser now bets 175. Okay.
He bets 175 now at the end?
Into 440.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question is, how much do we raise to? What the hell do we put him on?
So he's like in MP1, right? Basically.
Yeah. I don't remember how many handed we were playing. Like maybe he's like middle position.
Yeah.
Like MP1, something like that.
So I think that he's got about 700 left if you're 1K effective. So he's betting 175 into a pot of, what do we say, like 440, 450, something like that. And he's got about, so if you call, the pot will be 700, and he's got about 700 left. I gotta be honest with you. I mean, it looks to me like he either has a bluff, okay, or he has queen jack, or he has pocket queens. Now, if he has a bluff, if he has queen jack or he has pocket queens, I would just move all in. Right now, I think his bets. The only which is about a pot size bet. The only thing for not moving all in here is if you think that he's just bluffing so much, you can call and get the small blind to overcall. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, no way in hell. No,
I don't think that's going to happen. So I wouldn't concern myself. I would just move all in.
Yeah. All right. So pocket, I was kind of thinking that maybe he's playing pocket queens tricky, like he bets small, whatever, for whatever reason, and then once the guy raised, he's not going crazy with an overpair type of thing. I thought hopefully he hit pocket queens. That's what I was hoping for. Anyway, I raised to 400 and he folded, insta folded. I have no idea what the hell he had. So I raised small just to ensure, in case he had some kind. I mean, I was hoping he's got queens and maybe he actually, ships, whatever. But he folded. So I don't even know. I don't even know what he had. Maybe just a stone cold bluff, some kind of weird ass, air. But
I do. I do. It's an interesting things there, Gene. I think that you might have missed a couple of times to raise in the hand, obviously. But I honestly think that the play at the end is to move all in. Unless someone's showing me, I might start doing some more commentary for Live with the Bike. That's not official yet. We're not done with it yet. But, I haven't done a ton of commentary over the last few years recently, besides the stuff I've done on Stone. So I'm looking forward to doing that if it happens. And what I was going to say is that, until I start seeing at the $5 blind level somebody have the capability of bet folding to an all-in pocket queens or queen jack here, the play has to be all in. And I just don't see people folding. At least when I stopped doing the commentary
queens,
2 years ago.
I don't think people would fold a set, especially queens. But honestly, I don't remember how much he had back. Yeah, just I couldn't put him on the hand all the way through. That's one of the reasons why I didn't raise turn. And I was thinking maybe pocket queens. And when the queen hit, obviously, I made the nuts, and I was like, wow, if he's got pocket queens, obviously that's a nice cooler for me. But
all right, Gene, thanks for the call.
All right, thank you.
All right, we are gonna wrap it up here. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here. 817. I heard you. 817, you're there, right?
Yes.
I heard you laughing at the end of one of those calls before I had muted you.
Really?
The Tanner call? Oh, you weren't laughing at the Tanner call when I was like, why would the guy raise a probable ace king or a full house?
Well, if it was from my line, it could have been somebody in the background. There's a bunch of people around. I just stepped out.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought that you were okay. All right. So who's this?
I've got Outlier from Texas.
Okay.
Outlier on the forums.
Cool.
I've got a PLO hand for you.
Okay.
It's a home game. It's actually a 1-3 no limit, but they play one hand of PLO per round.
Okay.
So I'm in the cutoff.
It's 1-3, right? The level's 1-3.
1-3.
Okay.
It's 1-3, but it's a 5 bring in.
Okay. 1-3-5.
So the stacks they vary, but effective stacks let's call it 700.
Okay.
And I'm in the cutoff. There's a limp. We were 7-handed, so there's a limp ahead of me, and I over limp with queen 9-6 with suited queen 9 of clubs.
So you're in what, the hijack or the cutoff or what?
The cutoff.
So you're in the cutoff and you over limp 2 limps?
I over limp 1 limp.
With queen 9-6 with 1 suit, right? Queen high suit?
Yeah. Yeah, queen 9 of clubs.
Okay.
And then button limps, and then the small blind, he pots it. And he, this guy loves action. He loves to put pressure on people, and the value of this hand is very secondary. So and he loves to play. He loves to play Omaha. So him potting it really doesn't narrow his range at all. I mean, he could have 7-6 3 deuce, single suit, whatever. So everybody calls.
So, and how deep is everybody approximately?
There's one stack of about 300, but the villain covers. I've got 700, and the button's got about 500 to 600.
Okay, I mean, I think that your hand actually plays better heads up. I mean, you're in the cutoff, right? Like, you get 1 limp and I'm in the cutoff. Like, I've been playing a fair amount at Commerce. I would raise there with single-suited queens.
Okay.
You
mean first time around, or like ISO re-raise when he pops?
No, not ISO re-raise. No. First time around. When the guy limps, you just raise to get a heads up.
Okay.
So what do we got for a pot size now? Now we got 4 players in the hand and what, maybe like $150 or something like that?
Well, I remember his. So there could be, I forgot one limper, but I know that when he potted it, it was 55.
Okay, and there's 4 ways, right?
Yeah, so 220.
Okay. Okay.
And the flop is 10-8-7, 2 clubs.
10-8-7 with 2 clubs. Okay. So you have flopped the second nut straight, right? And you've got queen 9 of clubs. Is that correct?
Right.
Queen 9-6. So you've got a gutter to the nut straight.
Mm-hmm.
You have a straight, and you also have queen high clubs. This actually is a really good, interesting lesson about how. I mean, you've got 9-6 in your hand, but let's say that you didn't have the 9-6. Okay, let's say you had queen 5-5 or something like that.
Okay.
Or excuse me, let's say that you had like king queen 9. Let's say you had like king queen 9, king queen 9. Okay, so you had queen high clubs, and you had a gutter to a jack, right? This is where, like, in a so you've got like a straight flush draw, right? Straight draw and a flush draw. But in a multi-way pot, like if 2 people are all in front of you, you can't call. Like, all your draws might be dead. Now here, so that's what the value of, like, kind of getting these types of hands more short-handed than multi-way,
right?
Because you're always concerned about the value of your flush draw. Now, depending on what happens here, it's probably going to be very difficult for me to fold because you probably will be able to get it heads up. And the thing is that if you're up against a naked jack 9 and you've got queen 9 of clubs, you're just like a small dog, right? If someone gets in with a set, you've got you're good right now. So depending on what happens, it's going to be very difficult for me not to get it in here because of the higher straight redraw. Not because that I've got 9-6 and queen high clubs, but also that higher straight redraw too. I think is very important. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens?
Well, I'm calling because I'll tell you the spot in a second. But when the action came to me, I was afraid that this was one of those situations where my made hand could be beat and I could be up against a draw that dominates me. But I'll tell you the action. So the small blind, the action guy who had potted it pre-flop, he now pots it out of the small blind. He just leaves her pot. And then the limper in between us, so that's like 220. So then the limper goes all in the middle position guy goes all in for 300. So it's 220, and then the guy goes all in for 300, and then it's on me, and I've got still the guy on the button who's also an action player and will call. Although I don't know, maybe I want him to call. So that's where I was at, and I knew that.
Well, I'm starting to see. No, I start to see your logic here, because this is what the problem is you keep saying these guys are action guys, which usually is going to mean that that's going to widen their range. But let's say you had solid player and solid player. Yeah, I would be very concerned that someone's got the nut flush draw and then another guy has. The problem here is that if somebody has Jack 9 and someone has a higher flush draw than you, you're toast.
That's
right?
what I was thinking.
Yeah, you're toast.
That's exactly what I sort of zoned in on. And I did forget about in the moment I forgot about my gut shot nut straight outs.
Well, that just gives you a little bit of backup. That gives you a little bit of backup. Yeah. But the thing though is that like when you've got the action guy making it say 220. And then the limper is only all in for 300. I can't see how I wouldn't just get it in here. Because, again, like, if you're up against a naked Jack 9, it's probably a flip. You're probably a small dog. And then if someone else has got 9-6, you've got tons of redraw outs, right? And you're a favorite over a set. Right. So, yeah, the worst thing in the world that could happen here is that you move all in, and then somehow the button wakes up with a hand. And then someone wakes up with the nut flush draw, and you're up against Jack 9. That's what the app... But I can't imagine how you can fold here, though. I would just probably get it in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a long time, and I ended up folding, and I felt like it was probably too nitty of a fold, but that's helpful. I folded, the button folded, and then the small blind had a set of 8.
Okay.
So the guy that was driving the action had a set of 8.
So as long as the other guy doesn't have ace jack 9 with nut clubs, then you're fine, right? That's the only only hand. Now, as long as when this other guy has a set of 8, then if the other guy's jack 9, you're getting a very good price. You know what I'm saying? Right. The other guy's got redraws, but
okay.
So what did the other guy have?
He had the naked 9-6. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. The guys in the chat that are saying this is a fold. This guy Outlier had 9-6 in his hand too. It's not like he just had queen 9. He's got 9-6 in his hand too. So, what did they do? Would you have ended up scooping a big one?
No, the board paired on the river, so.
Oh, okay.
The guy would have hit it. He would have filled up.
Yep.
But so.
All right, buddy. Thanks for the call.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
All right, guys. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for us this week. Thank you guys for being subscribers as always. If you listen to this on the podcast and if you listen to this on YouTube, thanks for joining us. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
You're gonna give it up to me. Ready for not today, girl, then I must see tomorrow. When you fulfill my fantasy, because you know I give you love in shade like an arrow. When you're gonna give it up to me, so back it up there, so back it up, yeah. Cause I wanna be the man that's really gonna have it up and mock it up and rock it up there. So what is up, yeah, you know you got the vibe. And me have to develop and I swell up and double up, yeah. So give me the work, yeah, and rope in to fend for dirty looks and corrupt, yeah. So rev it up there, girl, go and try your luck there. Cause when you steer it up, you know me have to measure up, yeah. For me looking at me, I girl, me say you want me. When you gonna give it up to me? Because your body enticing me, making me want it. When you gonna give it up to me? When you put it today, girl, then I must see tomorrow. When you fulfill my fantasy, because you know I give you love in shade like an arrow. When you gonna give it up to me? Everything, girl, so me love to see you walk. Can I habla English, but just listen when me a talk. This I one up from me yard. Woman, you got me caught. You ever in my thoughts and I left me in the dark, in the first place, girl, that's where you belong. So just let me flip the switch, woman, I can turn it on and give it a passion from dusk till dawn. Tell me if you want it, fig one, my girl.
As a woman on my own, got it going on. I'm liking what I'm seeing, I don't wanna be alone. 'Cause you got me in the daze, the illusion makes me sweat. We go back and forth and round and up and down your way. Baby boy, could it be wonderful like this? They say it's all about in the way you
enticing me, making me want it. When you gonna give it up to me? Well, if I'm not today, girl, then I must see tomorrow. When you fulfill my fantasy, because you know I give you love it straight like an arrow. When you gonna give it up to me? Up yeah, boom, 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 boom. Come on, boom, stop it up there. Up yeah, boom, 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 boom. So why can't you see we ought to be together, girl? Don't front on me. I just wanna be next, so don't have no fear. And let me see you bring your body right over here, because you should share it, girl. I care it, and I'm gonna give you love so clear. It's gonna make you shine, and once you are mine, we'll be rocking it until the end of time. But me looking at me, I got me say you want me. When you gonna give it up to me? Because your body enticing me, making me want it. When you gonna give it up to me? Well, if I'm not today, girl, then I must see tomorrow. When you fulfill my fantasy, because you know I give you love it straight like an arrow. When you gonna give it up to me? But you looking at me, I got me say you want me. When you gonna give it up to me? Because your body enticing me, making me want it. When you gonna give it up to me? Well, if I'm not today, girl,